Greatness is not something the tongue announces. It is something the heart unveils. When a soft Allahu Akbar rises from the depths of a weary soul, it carries a meaning that only the unseen understands. The whisper does not travel through the air. It travels through the hidden corridors of the heart, reaching a realm where every burden is known before it is spoken. In that silent moment, the soul admits its smallness before the one who is beyond all measure, and that admission becomes its greatest strength. A weight you never described, a fear you never named, a sorrow you buried quietly, all begin to loosen as the whisper enters the unseen. It is as if the heart finally finds a place to set down what it has been carrying alone. Ibni Arabi says that when you declare the greatness of Allah softly, the world within you rearranges itself. Mountains that felt immovable begin to shift. Paths that were hidden begin to reveal themselves, and a clarity descends that cannot be explained with thought. The whisper becomes a doorway, small on the outside, endless on the inside. And through that doorway, help arrives not with noise, but with a calmness that settles into the soul like dawn after a long night. One soft Allahu Akbar, spoken with sincerity, can lift years of heaviness, because it brings the heart back to the one whose greatness makes all burdens light. The heart carries weights it never learned to name, burdens that settle quietly in unseen corners. When a soft Allahu Akbar rises from within, it touches those hidden places with a light gentler than dawn. This whisper is not a declaration to the world, but a confession to the divine. An admission that what you carry is too much for the self alone. In that moment of surrender, the tight circles of fear begin to loosen. The whisper becomes a breeze moving through a space that had forgotten how to breathe. What breaks is not the heart, but the heaviness that clung to it. A quiet Allahu Akbar enters the heart, like a river entering a barren field. It carries nourishment to places that felt lifeless, bringing movement where stagnation once ruled. The greatness of Allah does not crush the heart. It frees it. The soul realizes it does not need to hold its world together by force. In acknowledging the greatness of the one above all, the heart gently releases its obsession with control. The weight dissolves because the heart finally remembers who truly carries the universe. There is a moment when the whisper of Allahu Akbar meets the hidden grief of the soul. It does not confront it. It embraces it. This embrace is a mercy the world cannot provide. The heart feels seen in a way it has longed for, but never expected. As the whisper settles, a quiet stillness forms, and the sorrow begins to melt with it. The heaviness that once felt permanent now feels movable. The heart softens enough to let the sadness flow out instead of trapping it inside. The greatness of Allah revealed through a soft whisper realigns the heart with its true center. Before this whisper, the heart often spins around fears, losses, and uncertain futures. But when Allahu Akbar is spoken sincerely, the axis of the soul shifts. It begins revolving around divine nearness instead of worldly wounds. This shift dismantles burdens that were built on illusion. The heart discovers a lighter orbit, one guided by surrender rather than struggle. A soft Allahu Akbar reaches into the depth of the heart where unspoken disappointments reside. These disappointments take shape as weight, pressing the soul in ways others cannot see. The whisper carries a light that touches these shadows gently, lifting their heaviness without shattering them. The heart feels a release that is both unfamiliar and deeply comforting. This release is the first sign that the whisper has broken through the layers of heaviness. The moment the whisper is spoken, an unseen door opens inside the heart. Through this door enters a presence that dissolves anxiety like heat dissolves ice. The heart realizes it is no longer fighting alone. The whisper has become a call, and the response is a tranquility descending from a realm beyond time. This tranquility is not loud. It is subtle but overwhelming in its sweetness. It breaks the weight not through force, but through divine gentleness. A soft Allahu Akbar humbles the heart in the most beautiful way. The weight inside often comes from the illusion of self-sufficiency, believing you must hold everything together. When you whisper Allah's greatness, that illusion cracks. The soul remembers that it was never meant to carry the world. This remembrance breaks the weight that pride unknowingly built. The heart finds rest in becoming small before the one who is infinitely great. There is a hidden tension inside the heart, formed by expectations, fears, and regrets. This tension tightens silently over time. But when a quiet Allahu Akbar escapes the lips, the tension loosens as if the unseen gently unties a knot. The heart experiences a release that feels both unexpected and deeply familiar. It is the relief of returning to the one who always knew the heart's burden, even when the tongue could not speak it. A soft Allahu Akbar brings the heart into alignment with truth, the truth that nothing weighs heavier than the illusions we build, and nothing lifts those illusions like divine remembrance. When the whisper is sincere, the heart stops clinging to what was never meant to remain. The weight breaks because the heart recognizes what is real and what is not. In this recognition, the soul finds freedom. Sometimes the heart breaks under pressure, not because it is weak, but because it has forgotten where strength truly comes from. A gentle Allahu Akbar reconnects the heart to that source. It reminds the soul that Allah is greater than every burden, greater than fear, sorrow, loss, and confusion. In remembering this greatness, the heaviness that once felt immovable becomes small. The heart expands in ways it hasn't in years. A quiet Allahu Akbar interrupts the cycle of thoughts that trap the heart. When the mind spirals with worry, the whisper opens a window the thoughts cannot close. Light enters, and clarity begins to form where confusion once stood. The weight breaks, not because the situation changes, but because the perspective does. The heart sees its struggles through the lens of divine greatness rather than human limitation. The whisper creates a shift in the unseen that the heart feels immediately. The greatness of Allah draws the soul upward, lifting it out of the narrowness created by fear. The heart rises enough to see that it is not trapped. This rise breaks the suffocating weight that once defined your inner world. The soul breathes with new spaciousness, reminded that Allah's greatness surrounds every difficulty. A soft Allahu Akbar becomes a refuge for wounds that never healed properly. These wounds weigh on the heart like stones, but the whisper brings a nearness that dissolves those stones into sand, small, manageable, ready to be carried away by divine mercy. The heart feels lighter because the whisper has transformed the weight into something the soul can finally let go of. The quiet remembrance reveals that the heart was not designed to carry burdens alone. When Allahu Akbar is whispered, the soul feels the support it has been missing. This support is not seen, it is sensed, a feeling of being held, even in silence. The moment the heart feels held, the heaviness breaks, for weight loses its force when the soul no longer stands alone beneath it. A soft Allahu Akbar reconnects the heart with divine protection. Much of the weight inside comes from feeling exposed to the world, vulnerable to everything. The whisper brings the heart back under the canopy of Allah's greatness. Under that canopy, fear dissolves and strength returns. The heart feels guarded, and in that guardedness, its burdens shrink. The whisper becomes a shield woven from surrender. The moment the whisper rises, the heart's inner chambers open. These chambers hold fears that the mind has ignored. Allahu Akbar enters these chambers like a soothing breeze, calming the restless shadows inside. the weight inside the heart begins to break, not through confrontation, but through the presence of divine peace. The heart realizes that it has room again, room to breathe, to hope, to trust. A soft Allahu Akbar dissolves the loneliness that deep burdens often bring. When the heart feels alone, its weight doubles. When it feels accompanied by the divine, that same weight becomes bearable. The whisper reminds the heart that Allah is nearer than any sorrow, any fear, any wound. This nearness breaks the heaviness by reminding the soul it is never abandoned. The greatness of Allah, when acknowledged quietly, becomes a light that spreads inside the heart. This light exposes false burdens, those created by imagination, guilt, or fear. Once exposed, they lose their grip. The whisper cleanses the heart by separating truth from illusion. The weight breaks because the heart no longer clings to illusions that once felt real. A soft Allahu Akbar becomes a turning point for the heart. It redirects the soul from its inward collapse toward an upward rise. Where heaviness once pulled downward, remembrance pulls upward. The heart feels this shift instantly. The weight breaks because the heart has changed direction from inward contraction to divine expansion. The moment the whisper settles, the heart awakens to a new reality, that Allah's greatness surrounds every burden, engulfs every hardship, and overtakes every fear. The heart finally breathes in this truth, and the heaviness dissolves like fog under the morning sun. The whisper has broken the weight, not by force, but by awakening the soul to the one who is greater than all things. Before a whisper forms, the unseen has already sensed the heart's trembling. What rises inside you is not a sound but a longing, and longing is heard in realms where voices hold no power. The moment this longing turns toward Allah, a response begins, silent, swift, and wrapped in mercy. You may think you have not spoken yet, but the unseen has already understood. It reads the movement of the soul more clearly than the movement of the lips. The answer begins where intention awakens. There is a realm where the heart's smallest shift creates a ripple wider than oceans. When Allahu Akbar, or Subhanallah, forms silently within, the unseen recognizes the truth behind the thought. It is the truth, not the sound, that calls the divine response. Before the tongue even touches the word, the unseen begins arranging ease around you. A path clears, a burden lightens, a fear loses its shape. The answer comes because the heart reached out first. Sometimes the unseen responds not by changing what is outside, but by calming what moves wildly within. A whisper unspoken can quiet storms that had no name. The heart suddenly feels lighter, as if something heavy was lifted from a place even you could not reach. This inner shift is the unseen's way of saying, I heard you before you spoke. The soul recognizes this answer, not through the ears, but through the sudden peace that settles softly inside. The unseen hears sincerity long before it hears syllables. You may think you are about to whisper remembrance, but the unseen has already traced the sincerity rising through your chest. The answer begins in this sincerity, before breath, before voice, before sound. The heart senses a nearness it cannot explain. It feels accompanied in a moment that appears silent to the world, but is filled with conversation in the realm of the unseen. The heart often carries questions. It never verbalizes. Yet when it leans toward Allah even slightly, the unseen responds as if the question had been spoken in the loudest voice. A clarity arrives, a sign appears, or an unexpected calm wraps itself around the soul. This is the unseen, reading the language of your inward turning. It is a language older than speech, born from the soul's longing to return to its creator. There are burdens the tongue cannot describe because they sit too deep. but the unseen feels their weight instantly. When remembrance begins forming silently, the response from the unseen is not delayed. It meets the burden where it hides. You feel it in a sudden looseness, a gentle unwinding of what was tight inside you. The unseen has answered the whisper before the whisper was born. The unseen lives close to the heart, closer than the mind realizes. So when the heart inclines toward Allah, the unseen responds without waiting for permission from the tongue. The response is instinctive, immediate, effortless. A shift happens in the fabric of your day, or in the fabric of your chest. It is as though the unseen says, "I know what you seek," long before you form the words. The heart knows this truth by how quickly relief begins. A whisper not yet spoken can move the unseen, because intention holds a power greater than sound. When the soul turns towards remembrance, even imperfectly, the unseen answers with openings that the world cannot explain. A door you did not knock on begins to open. A burden you did not describe begins to lift. The unseen answers the direction of your heart, not the direction of your tongue. The unseen is not bound by the pace of speech or the slowness of articulation. It responds to the heartbeat of longing, to the breath filled with surrender, to the silence carrying hidden need. Before you say Allahu Akbar, the unseen has already received your submission. Before you whisper Astaghfirullah, forgiveness has already started its descent. The gap between your intention and its answer is thinner than a moment. Sometimes the unseen responds by sending a feeling you cannot explain. You may suddenly feel held, warmed, or uplifted, even though nothing around you has changed. This sensation is the unseen touching the heart before the whisper emerges. It is the divine nearness answering the soul in a language that needs no sound. The heart understands this language instantly, even when the mind does not. A quiet readiness to remember Allah opens doors that speech alone cannot. When the soul moves inward, the unseen moves outward to meet it. The answer might appear through guidance, through intuition, through ease, or through an unexpected shift in your circumstances. The unseen begins its work before the remembrance leaves your mouth, because the heart's turning is what calls divine response. The unseen does not require a complete word, only a complete sincerity. Even half a whisper, half an intention, half a turn toward the divine is enough to summon mercy. The moment Allahu Akbar stirs in the heart, the unseen begins unfolding support. You feel it in the gentle release of tension, in the softening of fear, in the clarity that enters quietly. The answer began before the whisper found breath. The heart speaks in ways the unseen hears perfectly. A sigh, a longing, a tremble. These are prayers without words. When remembrance begins to form in silence, the unseen answers with movement. Movement in your destiny, movement in your heart, movement in the weight you carry. What shifts is not by your effort, but by divine response. The whisper never needed to be spoken, only felt. The unseen responds with a mercy that anticipates your needs. Before you say Allahu Akbar, Allah already knows the burden behind the whisper. Before you whisper Astaghfirullah, He already knows the regret hidden beneath it. The unseen responds by placing ease ahead of you, softening what was harsh, guiding what was lost. The answer arrives before the request is formed. The unseen has a way of reading the heart the moment it leans. When the heart tips toward remembrance, even slightly, the unseen rises to meet it. Help begins to form around you, like clouds gathering before rain. You may not see the clouds, but you feel the coolness in the air. The whisper has not yet escaped your lips, but the answer has already begun surrounding you. There is a mercy that travels faster than sound, It is the mercy that responds to sincerity alone. When a quiet remembrance begins to rise, that mercy meets it halfway. It lifts the heart, steadies the breath, and gives strength to continue. Sometimes this is all the answer you needed, and it arrived long before the whisper could leave your tongue. A whisper unspoken may carry more truth than 1,000 words spoken loudly. The unseen responds to truth, not volume. When your heart turns honestly toward the greatness of Allah, the unseen moves as if a call has been shouted. Angels draw near, mercy descends, protection surrounds. The whisper was not finished, but the answer was already written. The unseen listens to the heart's trembling. When remembrance begins forming in silence, the unseen feels the shift as vividly as a change in the wind. The response arrives instantly, sometimes through comfort, sometimes through guidance, sometimes through sudden clarity. You may not know why your heart feels lighter, but the unseen knows exactly what it answered. The unseen answers, not because the servant speaks, but because the servant returns. Even the smallest return, even the faintest turning of the soul, triggers a response wrapped in compassion. Before you whisper Allahu Akbar, the unseen has already lifted part of your burden. Before you articulate your plea, ease has already begun its descent. This is the generosity of the one who knows the heart more deeply than the heart knows itself. The moment the heart intends remembrance, the unseen world leans toward it. The whisper does not need to be complete, because the heart's movement is complete. The answer arrives in silence, in stillness, in the subtle rearranging of your inner world. You feel seen without speaking, understood without explaining, lifted without asking. The unseen has answered the whisper before the whisper has taken form. When the heart finally admits its smallness before the infinite, a door opens inside the soul that cannot be opened by effort alone. The weight you carried begins to loosen, not because it disappears, but because you are no longer holding it in isolation. In surrender, the heart finds a kind of strength that was hidden beneath layers of pride and fear. This strength does not roar. It settles quietly in the center of the chest. It feels like lightness returning after a long exile. It is the moment the soul realizes it was never meant to be its own protector. To recognize your smallness is not to become weaker. It is to see reality with clarity. The infinite has always surrounded you, carried you, held you steady in ways unseen. But the heart cannot receive that strength until it lets go of the illusion of self-sufficiency. When you whisper your smallness to the one who has no limits, a new power begins to descend. It arrives like soft rain falling on dry land. The soil of the heart absorbs it instantly, and something begins to grow that was dormant for years. There is a strength hidden inside surrender that the world cannot understand. It comes not from winning battles, but from releasing the need to fight them alone. The moment you stand before Allah and say, even silently, I cannot carry this, the infinite answers with a strength that feels like certainty returning to a confused soul. Your steps become steadier, though nothing outward has changed. This inner confidence is a gift that only comes when the heart bows in humility. The greatest strength arrives when the soul accepts its true size, small before the infinite, weak before the Almighty, needy before the source of all sufficiency. This acceptance does not shrink you, it expands you. It opens a vastness inside your heart that mirrors the vastness of the one you turn to. In that vastness, fear loses its hold, worry becomes thin. The heart feels protected in a way no earthly shield can offer. This protection itself is strength. When you admit your smallness, you return to your original state, the state in which the soul feels closest to its creator. The ego resists this return, but the heart longs for it. As soon as the whisper of humility rises, the infinite responds with a presence that fills the spaces fear once occupied. This presence is not loud. It is felt like warmth in a cold room. It is a strength that does not break the heart, but restores it. Every struggle becomes heavier when the soul imagines it must navigate alone. But when you confess your smallness to the infinite, the burden shifts from your limited hands to the limitless power of the divine. This shift is not seen, but it is deeply felt. A calm enters the heart, accompanied by a certainty that was absent seconds before. This is not the strength you create. It is the strength placed within you by the one who knows your limits better than you do. There is a moment in surrender when the heart feels simultaneously light and grounded. Light because it no longer carries what is beyond it. Grounded because it now leans on something unshakable. This moment is the essence of divine strength descending. The infinite meets the smallness of the servant with a generosity that exceeds every expectation. In this meeting, the heart finds courage it never knew it had. The infinite does not ask you to be strong. He asks you to be honest. Honesty about your dependence is the key that unlocks a strength untouched by fear or doubt. When you say, even in silence, you are the great, I am the small, the universe within you rearranges itself. What once felt impossible begins to feel manageable. What once felt overwhelming becomes a path illuminated by trust. This is the strength of divine alignment. Admitting your smallness frees you from the prison of trying to control what was never yours to control. Control is a burden. Surrender is relief. The moment you let go, the infinite steps into the space your pride was occupying. This entry brings a quiet strength that does not dominate, but stabilizes. The heart becomes anchored in belief rather than fear. Anchored hearts walk differently. They walk with assurance even through uncertainty. There are trials that shrink the soul when it faces them alone, but those same trials become pathways when faced with the infinite beside you. By acknowledging your smallness, you make room for divine strength to accompany you. You feel uplifted in ways you cannot express in words. It is as though invisible hands carry part of your weight, leaving you able to move again. This movement is the gift of surrender. Strength descends when the heart stops pretending and starts revealing its truth. The truth that it feels lost, fragile, overwhelmed, or tired. The infinite does not reject weakness. He responds to it. The moment you reveal your smallness, mercy descends with a softness that breaks the hardness inside you. In that softness, a new strength awakens, one rooted not in arrogance, but in connection to the divine. The more the heart recognizes its need for the infinite, the more spacious it becomes. This spaciousness is itself a form of strength. It allows the heart to hold peace even in chaos, to hold clarity even in confusion, to hold hope even in sorrow. This strength is not the absence of hardship. It is the presence of Allah within hardship, and it begins the moment you admit your smallness sincerely. Divine strength does not manifest through force. It manifests through presence when the heart turns toward the infinite in humility. A presence descends that fills the emptiness created by fear. The emptiness becomes occupied by certainty. The weakness becomes infused with light. The heart that once trembled begins to steady itself. This transformation is the unseen work of admitting your smallness. A soul that embraces its smallness no longer breaks under pressure. Its strength is not its own. It is borrowed from the one whose power never diminishes. When you whisper your limitations, the infinite whispers back with reassurance. This reassurance settles into the heart like a healing balm. It eases pain, dissolves confusion, and brings the kind of strength that cannot be earned through effort alone. The infinite responds to humility with generosity. The heart that bows receives support from realms it cannot see. Suddenly, answers appear. Ease descends, or the chest feels lighter. These are the signs of strength, entering quietly. You may not know where it came from, but your soul knows. It knows that surrender opened the way, and humility invited the divine to act. There is a hidden beauty in admitting your smallness. It strips the soul of illusions and brings it face to face with truth. The truth that strength never belonged to you. It always belonged to the one you turn to. When this understanding settles, the heart becomes brave. Brave not because it is strong, but because it is connected. This connection becomes the source of every strength you will carry forward. When the heart bows, the heavens respond. Not with thunder or shock, but with subtle shifts in your inner world. Thought becomes clearer, fear becomes softer, and decisions become lighter. These shifts are the movements of divine strength descending. They happen quietly, almost invisibly, but their impact shapes your entire life. All of this begins with a whisper of smallness. To admit your smallness is to recognize that the infinite has been carrying you even when you thought you were carrying yourself. This realization removes the heaviest weight of all the illusion that you are alone. Once this illusion breaks, divine strength enters freely. It flows into the heart the way sunlight fills a dark room. The darkness does not resist, it simply disappears. Humility, before the infinite, invites a form of strength that is inseparable from peace. The heart becomes steady enough to accept destiny and flexible enough to navigate hardship. This dual strength is only given to those who bow sincerely. When you admit your smallness, you align with a power that transcends human limits. In this alignment, the soul finds its true stability. The moment you admit your smallness to the infinite, you enter a spiritual state where burdens become lighter, paths become clearer, and the heart becomes stronger than it has ever been. This strength is not loud or forceful. It is calm, deep, and unwavering. It is the strength of knowing you belong to the one who is greater than everything you fear, everything you lost, and everything you hope for. A path appears closed only from the perspective of the heart that feels trapped beneath its own thoughts. When a soft Allahu Akbar rises from within, the heart is lifted above that narrow viewpoint. What once looked like a wall begins to look like a veil. The whisper tears a small opening in that veil, and light enters where the mind had accepted darkness. This light does not reveal the entire path at once, but it reveals enough to take the next breath with hope. The beginning of the opening is the whisper itself. A whispered Allahu Akbar shifts the soul from seeing obstacles to seeing possibilities. Closed paths are not barriers, but mirrors reflecting the state of the heart. When the heart declares Allah's greatness, even softly, the mirror cracks and reveals a doorway behind it. This doorway was always there, but hidden beneath layers of fear, doubt, and grief. Through remembrance, the heart recognizes that what seems closed is only unopened. The whisper becomes the key that fits the invisible lock. There are moments in life when the soul reaches a place where nothing seems to move. Plans stall, hopes dim, and the future feels silent. Yet, in that stillness, a soft Allahu Akbar becomes a spark. It ignites a shift the heart did not expect. The unseen begins rearranging circumstances that the mind had given up on. The path that felt sealed begins to soften like ice under sunlight. The whisper becomes the beginning of movement in a place where movement felt impossible. When the heart whispers Allahu Akbar, it does more than remember Allah's greatness. It acknowledges the limits of its own understanding. Closed doors often arise from seeing the world with the narrowness of pain, but this whisper widens perception. It lifts the heart above the landscape of fear. From this height, what looked like an ending reveals itself as a curve in the path. bending toward a destiny the soul had not yet imagined. Sometimes the path feels closed because the heart is too weary to see the openings. A quiet Allahu Akbar brings strength to tired inner eyes. It refreshes the spirit like a cool breeze entering a suffocating room. With renewed vision, the soul notices opportunities it overlooked, blessings it dismissed, and guidance it ignored. The path rewrites itself not by appearing new, but by being seen with clarity born from remembrance. A whispered Allahu Akbar travels into the unseen and returns with a shift in destiny. This shift may come as a sudden ease, a new idea, or a person appearing at the right moment. It may even come as the courage to take a step you had been afraid to take. The path opens because the heart opened. The whisper created a space for divine intervention. And in that space, what once felt final becomes fluid again. What feels closed to you is open to the one you call upon. The whisper of Allahu Akbar aligns your path with divine wisdom. It places your steps under a guidance you could never design alone. This guidance does not always make sense immediately. It may come through detours, delays, or unexpected shifts, but each shift is part of the rewritten path unfolding under Allah's greatness. The whisper marks the moment when the rewriting begins. A path may feel blocked because it was never yours to walk in the first place. When you whisper Allahu Akbar, the heart releases its attachment to routes that do not serve its true purpose. The unseen gently closes false paths to open the one meant for your soul. What appears as loss becomes direction. What feels like rejection becomes protection. The whisper transforms disappointment into realignment. A soft Allahu Akbar reaches the unseen as a declaration of trust. Trust is what allows the heart to step into places it once feared. Trust is what turns a dead end into a beginning. When the heart trusts, new doors appear where logic saw none. These doors are not built from wood or stone. They are built from divine permission. And that permission descends the moment you whisper Allah's greatness with sincerity. One whispered Allahu Akbar has the power to rewrite the path because it rewrites the heart first. A heart freed from fear can walk where it once trembled. A heart freed from pride can accept guidance it once rejected. A heart freed from attachment can embrace change without collapsing. In this transformation, the path reshapes itself naturally. What was once blocked becomes reachable through the heart that remembers its Lord. There are paths that remain closed until the heart releases its resistance. A soft Allahu Akbar melts this resistance like warmth touching cold metal. It softens stubbornness, clears confusion, and loosens the grip of painful memories. As the heart softens, the universe responds. Opportunities move closer. Guidance becomes clearer. The path opens not by force, but by surrender. Closed paths often come from believing that your strength is the only strength available. But a whispered Allahu Akbar reminds the soul that it is connected to the infinite. In that remembrance, your limited strength steps aside to allow unlimited strength to flow through your life. The unseen begins clearing obstacles you never could, arranging outcomes you never imagined, and guiding you toward places you never thought you could reach. This is how the path is rewritten. Some paths are rewritten not outwardly, but inwardly. The situation may not change immediately, but your capacity, your patience deepens. Your hope returns. Your heart steadies. These inner openings lead to outer openings. The whisper becomes the beginning of a transformation that bends your life toward ease. The path ahead is shaped by who you become through remembrance. There is no path. Allah cannot reopen, reshape, or redirect. A quiet Allahu Akbar calls upon this power with humility. It invites barriers to crumble gently, without noise or violence. It invites unforeseen help to arrive silently. It invites clarity to enter your confusion, like light entering a cave. In the unseen realm, the path begins to shift, even while your feet remain still. Sometimes the path you thought was closed was simply waiting for the heart to grow strong enough to walk it. A whispered Allahu Akbar nourishes that strength. It calls forth resilience, courage, and trust in divine timing. What felt impossible begins to feel attainable. The heart rises with new capability, and the path rises to meet it. The rewriting happens when both path and heart align. When you whisper Allahu Akbar, you are not asking for the path to change. You are asking for reality to reveal itself as it truly is. The path that appears closed may only be a doorway waiting for the right moment. The unseen arranges that moment with perfection. Your whisper becomes the signal that you are ready to receive what was withheld from you out of divine wisdom. A soft Allahu Akbar opens possibilities the heart could not imagine. From the unseen, opportunities are guided toward you like birds drawn to light. They land softly in your life without force or effort. You recognize them not by their appearance, but by the peace they bring. This peace signals that the rewritten path has begun to unfold in front of you. Every path that opens begins with a turning of the soul. When Allahu Akbar rises from within, that turning becomes complete. The heart stops walking in circles and begins walking forward. Forward into trust, into surrender, into possibility. The whisper becomes the pivot point that shifts your entire journey. The unseen moves accordingly, shaping what lies ahead. The whisper of Allah's greatness breaks the illusion that you are limited by the world around you. It reminds the heart that it is guided by a power greater than destiny, greater than obstacles, greater than endings. The moment you whisper Allahu Akbar, the unseen begins crafting a path tailored to your soul. It may not be the path you expected, but it will be the path you were meant to walk. The rewriting of your path begins not with a miracle you witness, but with a whisper you offer. That whisper travels into realms unseen, and what returns is guidance, protection, and openings crafted by divine wisdom. A path you believed was closed becomes a passage leading you somewhere better than what you hoped for. This is the miracle hidden inside a single whispered Allahu Akbar. A whispered Allahu Akbar may disappear in the air, but it rises in the unseen as a cry the heavens never ignore. If the heart knew how gently Allah responds to even its smallest turning, it would whisper His greatness with every breath. So carry this remembrance softly, and watch how the burdens you never shared begin to lift in ways only the infinite can arrange.